Now, in Sydney, the cost of policing pro-Palestinian protesters is $220,000 a week. And we even had protesters against Douglas Murray over the weekend. We're going to have him in the studio tomorrow, Daniel. It's going to be very exciting indeed. But his event at the Sydney Enmore Theatre had anti-Israeli protesters there and other left-wing agitators, and they are just allergic to free speech. I mean, how can you be protesting Douglas Murray, one of the finest thinkers of his generation? He is by no means any sort of right-wing reactionary, and yet that's how they're casting him.
Well, it just shows they're not interested in debate, doesn't it? I mean, this has been a hallmark of the left. We saw it with COVID, we've seen it with climate, we saw it with The Voice. They don't want to debate anyone. They don't want their ideas challenged. They either call you a racist or whatever else to shut down your debate, or they protest your event so that people are too scared to rock up. Most people just want to have a debate, a diversity of opinions. That's the foundation of a democracy. But time and time again, we see the left, and it's becoming more emboldened and more bolshy in their willingness to censor and shut down their opponents.
Well, because they get away with it. They're getting away with it increasingly in the courts and sometimes with the cops, with this two-tier policing. Now, let's talk about the ABC. Their new chair there, Kim Williams, is cracking down on ABC journalist activists, insisting on a podcast. If you don't want to reflect a view that aspires to impartiality, don't work at the ABC. Or Daniel, is he naive or just, I don't know, a man who loves punishment? Because he's going to find out very quickly this is a staff-run collective. If he really does want to eliminate this sort of institutional bias that the ABC has, he's going to have to make some massive changes. And is he willing to do that?
He might be willing to do it, but it's not going to happen. Like, it is a staff-run collective. You hit the nail on the head. We've seen, whether it's the managing director or the chairman, they have almost no influence as to what happens on the ground at the ABC with their editorial positions and their commentary. No one's saying that journalists can't have an opinion, but what we're saying is it's a public broadcaster funded by taxpayers. Therefore, you have to make at least a reasonable effort to showcase the diverse views of the Australian community. At least have both sides of the story on major issues. They don't do that. The only way you can fix the ABC is either through changing its funding or changing the regulations which are attached to that funding. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be more of the same.
Well, we do have a charter. They're actually breaking their charter, so they're legally obliged to be impartial. They're not like The Guardian or Fairfax or Nine, I should say, Fairfax, they don't exist anymore, or even Us. But they have a charter, they're taxpayer funded, so they have to be impartial, and that is never enforced. It's never enforced under coalition government or a Labor government. And we saw that with The Voice most clearly when the majority of Australians, a significant majority in the end, voted no. You look at the ABC coverage, you would have thought a no vote was a 1,000,000 to 1 shot, because it was just overwhelmingly activist yes content.
It was, and it just reflects the inner city bias of the ABC. They don't understand the views of ordinary Australians, and they actually look down upon them in many ways. They look down on the lived experience and the life of ordinary people. Look, there's deep structural issues at the ABC. The charter should be enforced. If there's going to be a charter, at least enforce it. I don't know what mechanisms there are to do that, but clearly the priority for an ex-coalition government has to be, OK, if you don't want to touch the funding, OK, at least enforce the charter so it has to be impartial.
Now, Princess Kate has finally revealed where she's been the past few months, privately battling cancer. But even this very public admission wasn't enough to quell the whinings of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This is something Jacqueline Magnay wrote about in today's Australian. Sources close to Harry and Meghan immediately told People magazine that the pair were not informed of the Princess of Wales's diagnosis, adding that they are being left out of any details regarding Kate and that there's clearly no trust. I wonder why. Harry and Meghan did release a statement wishing the princess well. But I've got to say, they find a way to insert themselves into every story concerning the royals. For a couple who just want to live their lives privately, they do they do love contacting the media with these strategic leaks.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking of the South Park episode when you mentioned that, which was a great send-up. But, yeah, it's all about them, isn't it? And that's what they don't understand. People That's the main thing that people have a problem with Harry and Meghan, is it's all about them. Everybody's wishing Kate and the royal family all the best, and obviously the king as well with their health troubles, but somehow they managed to take that story and take that real issue and make it all about them.
And finally, Rebecca Judd has taken to Instagram to slam the Victorian government's lack of response to growing crime in her suburb of Brighton. The model and businesswoman said, "Pretty sure someone warned the government about this back in 2022 and was rubbished. They didn't care then and they don't care now. This is a Victoria-wide issue, not just Bayside." And Daniel, she is 100% right. Dan Andrews tried to bully her with old stats. So did parts of the media, to their great shame. But the latest data shows she was 100% on the money about this surge in crime. And yeah, I think Dan should come out of retirement just for an apology here, just for a quick apology.
I think so. I won't be holding my breath on that at all. But she's right. There is a crime problem in Victoria.
Oh, yeah.
And like you and I have talked about before, the issue is we're locking up the wrong people. There's over a third of those in jail are there for low-risk, non-violent offences. Now, they'd be much better out of jail and in work and making a contribution. At the same time, we've got dangerous, violent criminals on the streets. The cops aren't doing their job because they're going to these transgender climate protests and not actually dealing with real crime. Yeah. So this is just another example. We need wholesale reform of our criminal justice system.
Daniel Wild, thanks for your time.